The Eton Choirbook, Crossroads of the Renaissance. TONUS PEREGRINUS brings to life the radiant polyphony of the Eton Choirbook, a priceless witness to England's musical flowering around 1500. Within its vast pages lie antiphons, magnificats and passion settings that preserve some of the most dazzling soundscapes of pre-Reformation devotion. In this performance, the ensemble traverses contrasting masterworks by Lamb, Stratford, Davy, Brown and Wilkinson, where rigorous scholarship meets exquisite artistry, and offers the rare chance to hear some of the music sung directly from the choirbook's original notation. Opening the Eton Choirbook invites listeners into a living encounter with a glorious musical past. One of the exceptional privileges of working with TONUS PEREGRINUS is the ability to pursue major projects over a number of years with the same core of virtuosic and versatile performers, drawing on expertise and resources from colleagues around the world. Sometimes that means brand new music. Sometimes it is very old indeed. Opening the Eton Choirbook continues a journey with real impact on the future of early music making, as in our previous explorations of the Dow and Sadler Part books, with the support of the University of Oxford's Digital Image Archive of Medieval Music. Our singers are learning the music by reading from original notation. This time it is the magnificent Eton Choirbook from around 1500, supported by Excelsior University College in Sydney and rehearsed in the late medieval antechapel at New College, Oxford. When we stand around a central music stand to sing a piece, there is a different look and feel from a normal choral performance. We step into the shoes of those who first sang this glorious polyphony from the same black and red dots more than half a millennium ago, and we bring back to our reading from modern scores a new sense of resonance, of line, and of belonging. The Eton Choirbook. Eton College has produced 20 British Prime Ministers, but only one choirbook. The giant manuscript of the Eton Choirbook is one of the greatest surviving glories of pre-Reformation England, consisting of sacred music for many voices, originally sung by the choir as part of the daily liturgy. Yet reading its intricate and colourful notation is an almost lost art today. After exploring this notation for more than a quarter of a century in workshops and performances in Europe and Australia with Capella Pratensis, TONUS PEREGRINUS, the Song Company and TONUS Australis, it is undeniable that performing from the very instructions the original musicians used brings us closer to the music, closer both to the way it sounded and to the psychophysical experience of the 15th and 16th century performers and their community. The simple act of turning over the pages of a giant early 16th century choir book produces a visceral response that opens up another world, historical, musical, physiological, even theological. There is a proverb contemporary with the Eton Choirbook written down in the late 16th century Dow Part books. Galli cantant, Italiae capriant, Germani ululant, Anglici jubilant. Roughly, the French sing, the Italians quaver, the Germans wail, and the English make a joyful noise. English musicians had loved successions of joyful sounding thirds for generations before the choirbook. By experimenting with full triads, John Dunstable, the first truly great English composer, took this jubilation to a new level, such that in 1475 the musicologist Tincturus could claim that music had been transformed within his own lifetime into a new art. This joyful noise remained a quintessentially English characteristic through the extremes of Talus's 40-part Speminalium and Gibbon's ravishing Hymns and Songs of the Church, right down to composers of the 20th and 21st centuries. But in the Eton Choirbook itself, some unsurpassed heights of musical ecstasy were reached, mirroring the lofty perpendicular style of 15th and early 16th century architecture. Eton College. Founded along with King's College, Cambridge in the early 1440s by Henry VI, Eton College was to be a haven of education, devotion and charity in the middle of political turbulence, the final stages of the 100 Years' War with France, the so-called Wars of the Roses, and later the reforms and counter-reforms of Henry VIII and his children. That turbulence devastated many libraries, including the Chapel Royal Library, making the surviving 126 of the original 224 leaves in Eton College manuscript, 178 all the more precious. Eton's chapel library itself had survived a forced removal in 1465 to Edward IV's St George's Chapel, a stone's throw away in Windsor, during a temporary fall from royal favour. Under Henry VII, who claimed the throne for the Tudors in 1485 at the Battle of Bosworth, the repertoire of the Eton Choirbook particularly flourished, and the book itself was compiled around 1500, described in a 1531 inventory as a great ledger of prick song secundo folio tum cuncta. Putting together a choir book was no mean feat. As Magnus Williamson notes in his introduction to his facsimile edition, not only would it have cost something like an entire year's salary for a senior chaplain, it would also have required the skins of 112 average-sized calves. However magnificent, the choir book's music was just the tip of a titanic schedule of devotions in the late Gothic acoustics of the college chapel. Each day, some 7 masses were said or sung, in addition to various observances that had sprung up around Mary, the Virgin Mother of Jesus. Feast days required yet more celebration, with particular emphasis on Passiontide and Holy Week. The college's statutes of 1443-4 made provision for, among others, 16 choristers and 4 clerks, who were to have good voices and be skilled in reading, song and polyphony. Eton composers and their music. Of the 25 composers represented in the choirbook, several had strong links with Eton itself. Walter Lamb and quite possibly John Brown were there in the late 1460s as boys. Brown, the composer of the astounding 6-part Stabat Mater Dolorosa, and very possibly of the carol Jesu Mercy, How May This Be, in the early 16th century Fairfax manuscript, may have gone on to New College, Oxford. Richard Davy, the first name composer of a Passion setting, was at Magdalen College, Oxford in the 1490s. We can imagine these composers and their fellow singers grouped around the huge choir book on a lectern. 7 or so men, and in front 10 boys singing treble and mean or medius, whose undimmed eyesight could still read the top of the very large pages. The size of the pages meant parchment was necessary, and to be legible in uncertain candlelight, the music was solidly inscribed on staves some 2 centimetres high. Each voice part is written by itself, without bar lines, on one part of the open spread. Unlike a modern score, there is no vertical alignment, and little to show the tactus or beat, apart from note groupings. The note heads are almost all in black full notation, that is, filled-in semibreves and minims, which survived longer in England than on the continent, rather than the more familiar black void notation used in modern sheet music. Red ink conveyed further instructions. Red text signalled reduced numbers of voices, while red note heads introduced binary imperfection into a mensural world built on Trinitarian proportions, 3:2, or what today we would call triplets and hemiolas. The original index lists more than 60 antiphons, all votive antiphons, designed for daily extra-liturgical use and fulfilling Mary's prophecy, "From henceforth all generations shall call me blessed." One of the best known is Lamb's Nessien's Mater, weaving some of the loveliest polyphony around the plain chant tenor. The Magnificat is Mary's song of praise in response to her cousin Elizabeth's salutation. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. At some point, no fewer than 24 versions of the Magnificat were added to the choir book, including the ebullient four-part setting by William, Monk of Stratford, which is sung here in alternating and finally combined choirs of upper and lower voices. Stratford's polyphony includes quirky, audible examples of rhythmic word painting, such as a lost beat between "the rich" and "he hath sent empty away," and an extra beat at "his seed for ever." Almost the final addition to the entire choir book is the first surviving Passion setting by a named composer. The opening pages of Davies' St. Matthew Passion are lost, so the story begins in this performance with Jesus standing before Pilate. Davies' polyphony sets the spoken parts of the narrative, with the rest intoned by a single voice, and is notable for its intense, quick-changing response to the text. For example, the sonic contrast between the names of Barabbas and of Jesus. A main index was compiled after these pieces had been added. The only two works not listed are by Robert Wilkinson, presumably appended between 1500 and 1515 during his tenure as Informator Choristarum at Eton. One of these is on the manuscript's final page, Jesus Autem Transiens, Credo in Deum, a canonic setting for 13 voices of the Apostles' Creed. The 12 apostles' names are inscribed above successive phrases, and the opening chant, "But Jesus passing through them," can be heard passing from one voice to another. Singing from the source. Anthony Pitt's interpretation of the Eton Choirbook has evolved over more than a quarter of a century, first with the pioneering Capella Pratensis, then on record for Naxos with Tonus Peregrinus, then with the Song Company in Australia, and now again from original notation with Tonus Peregrinus as part of his research as William Byrd Fellow and Ambassador at Excelsior University College. Throughout this time, Anthony has paid particular attention to an aspect of the music largely lost over the centuries. Together, we try to bring the dots on the page to life by recovering their often vibrant harmonic colour. Our main tool for this restoration is the careful addition of momentary sharps and flats beyond those scattered in the manuscript. Here we draw on 3 resources: the writings of contemporary theorists on musica ficta and related practices such as the T.S. de Bigorre, a composer-editor's ear for consistency and harmonic direction, that is, when beauty should triumph over necessity, and many hours of rehearsal trying out different possibilities for each vocal line in the ensemble. The result will never be identical to what was sung 500 years ago, but we can be confident that these supposed wrong notes are on the right track, as once pallid polyphony bursts into resonant combinations matching the vivid reds, blues and golds of the choir book itself. Reading directly and learning the music from the choir book is a huge challenge for modern singers, but it opens a door into a world where melodies and counter-melodies tell a new story together, and where the resulting harmonies ring with a particular sense of community and purpose. This beauty of purpose underlies everything we do in Tonus Peregrinus, whether the music was written 500 years ago or yesterday, and we look forward to opening the Eton Choirbook and sharing this glorious polyphony with audiences far and wide.